such like a hearty response to anti-Valentine, so I feel like I love you guys already. Yeah, I'm Paula. I'm 35. I'm single. But I'm actually on a date. Whether my date will still want to be on a date with me after this set is another guess. But we'll see how that goes. So I guess it all started about a year ago. I went with a friend of mine speed dating. And the thing is, at the time, I was still in a relationship. And my boyfriend was okay with it, which is probably a sign that I wasn't going to be in a relationship for much longer. But I go with my friend, actually, in a wingman capacity to go speed dating. And it's pretty fucking weird, right? First of all, the ticket's like 25 quid, okay? And then we go to this ginormous bar in the city, and we arrive, and it's kind of like being at a conference. You go in, there's like a clipboard, you sign in, they give you a name tag. But then all the girls have to wear this chain around their neck with a lock at the end, right? And then on the back of your name tag, you've got like a celebrity couple that you're part of. So you do your sign-in process, you go into this room where I notice that the women are significantly more attractive than the men, and there's more of them. And then basically what happens is guys come up to you, looking at your chest, but hey, they're looking at your lock, they're not looking at your chest, and they've got their key, and they try to put their key into your lock, and if it fits, you get to have a drink. Awesome. And then we've got the other icebreakers, right? So there's a celebrity couple thing. So while they're kind of like jamming their key away at your lock, they're like, I'm Brad Pitt, are you Angelina? And you're like, no, just leave me alone. And this goes on for 2 hours until the speed dating event happens, right? And the women are really unfriendly. And I get that, it's like a straight dating event, but you think that women can still talk about how awkward the whole thing is. And the men are kind of just experimenting with talking with women. They have a hard time making eye contact. They kind of have a hard time breathing in the same space. They probably haven't left their offices ever until this day. It's pretty weird. And by the end, my friend is no closer to being in a relationship. And I don't feel great about the prospects of being single, and I'm kind of glad that I'm with someone. And then, time passes, and I'm hanging out with some gay guy friends, and we start talking about Grindr. And I'm like, you guys are so set up. You have way more sex than everyone, than straight people, than lesbians. It's and you've got an app for it as well. You don't even need an app for it. You just go out on buses and you meet up with each other. It's so unfair. And then, more time passes, and a friend of mine moves into my apartment with me and my boyfriend, and she's lesbian. And then she's on this app called Brenda. And Brenda, other than having a really weird name, is kind of like Grindr, but with a lot less sex, okay? But I'm still kind of fascinated by it because I've done my fair share of online dating, but this was before iPhones, right? So now, my friend is sitting on her sofa, messaging women who live 2 kilometers away from her house about meeting on the weekend. I'm totally intrigued. Little did I know, very soon I too would be able to discover such charms. So, without getting into gritty details, more time passes, me and my boyfriend break up, and I'm in Austria on a residence. And I meet these 2 girls from Liverpool, and they're part of this group called the RSPLB, which is the Royal Society of Protecting Lovebirds. Okay, so basically the way it works, they're these crew of super hot girls with kind of bird watching gear. They've got binoculars, little berets, little cute t-shirts. And then they basically go around at festivals helping people hook up, right? So the way it happens, they go up to someone, usually a girl, right? And then they run over the girl and then they're like, who do you fancy? And you're like, you look at the binoculars. That guy with the glasses and the Odd Future shirt. And she's like, awesome. And then she runs across the field to the guy, gives him the binoculars, runs back to you and is like, okay, so he says he likes you. And then, you snog or whatever you do. And that's kind of their thing, right? And they're like, we're going to do our first club night in London because up until now they've just been doing festivals. And I'm like, I don't know. I've only just come out of a relationship. I'm not sure about any singles events, especially a bird watching themed one. But yeah, I'll take your number when I get back to London. I'll think about it. And I get back to London, and I think about it for a couple days, and I'm like, fuck it, maybe I should just get back in the ring. Maybe doing something silly like this is exactly what I need. And I call one of my single girlfriends, and I tell her about it, and she's like, the RSPLB, they totally hooked me up with 3 really cute guys at Wilderness Festival. We have to go. So I'm like, okay, so it's on. So we decide we're going to go. But then 2 days before, she gets work and she can't go with me. And I can't go on my own, right? So I tell my flatmate, because now, my boyfriend's moved out, so I've got a new flatmate, and he's in a relationship. But it turns out it's an open relationship because it's a long distance thing. And he's like, I would love to go to a birdwatching themed singles event with you. So I'm like, awesome. So we go. And we arrive, and the beginning feels a bit like the speed dating thing. Because there's girls on a table with clipboards and name tags. And I'm already a little bit crestfallen. And then there's a bird watching theme. So not only is it like, who do you like? I'm trying to work out, am I don't know, like a raven or a rock dove or something. So I've got my clipboard, I'm trying to fill it out. And I haven't even finished out the form, and suddenly this girl with binoculars appears, grabs my flatmate, because he's already been picked by one of the girls in the room. We've not even gone through the door properly yet. I'm like, okay, well, good for him. I'm glad he's getting something out of it. But I fill out my form. I decide I'm a rock dove, by the way. And I go into a room that's not that much bigger than this room. And the first thing that I notice is, once again, the women are more attractive. But there are significantly more women. Like, I would say it is like 80 to 85% female. Like, okay. And my flatmate is already in a conversation with a girl with binoculars, another girl who's looking very, very excitedly at him. And it feels a little bit awkward. And then some gay girlfriends of mine arrive, and I'm bi, so I think, oh, I get it. Maybe it's like more of like a polysexual lesbian event. So I'm kind of more into it. But then we quickly work out that they're the only gay girls in the room, and they just give up and end up having shots with each other at a table for the rest of the evening. And meanwhile, I can't talk to my flatmate because every time he's about to come back, he's plucked by another girl with binoculars to talk to another girl to have a 10-minute relationship. Now, the 10-minute relationship is kind of the cornerstone of this event, and it kind of works like this, right? A girl grabs you and a person, and you sit down at a table, and then first you give each other a compliment. I find this out later because after hours pass and I'm not getting any action, one of my friends is probably embarrassed that she's invited me in the first place, and I'm watching like the 5 cute guys in the room hiding behind each other because they're terrified of this room of like overly keen women staring at them with like their bird motif IDs. And my friend is like, come on, Paula, there must be someone in the room that you fancy. I'm like, okay, out of like the 4 cute guys in the room, I guess that guy's kind of okay. So she runs over to him, there's a bit of chat, and now it's my time to experience what my flatmate has now had 6 of, the 10-minute relationship, which is like this. So you sit down, you are chaperoned the whole time by a girl from the RSPLB to make sure no funny business occurs. And yeah, you give each other a compliment. So I don't know, I say, you have nice eyes, and he says, you have a nice handbag. Yeah, not a good start. Then we're supposed to kiss. You can kiss anywhere you want. We do a really kind of 12 certificate kiss. Then we're supposed to have an argument. And he calls me a bitch. A little bit emphatically. And I say I'm kind of offended because I am. And then the girl with the binoculars says, okay, I'm going to leave you to decide whether you want to continue seeing each other or not. And the guy's like, oh, you know, I'm only here because one of my friends is one of the organizers of this event, and you seem like a really nice girl, but I just feel like, you know, when you meet someone, there should be kind of some story, right? There should be some, like, magic and spontaneity about it. I'm just not convinced by this whole concept singles event. I mean, the last time you met someone, wasn't there some story to it? I'm like, well, yeah. And then I remember this. Dark-haired girl on her bike stops you on the corner, asks you very shyly, very politely, do you know a street called? And then you answer very politely, I don't know it, but I'm also trying to find out where it is. And then you make the kind of conversation your second language allows you to make, until you discover that she's Australian, and she discovers that you're American. And you both think it's hilarious that you've been speaking German. You walk through the doors. You meet the other performers, and as you wait for things to begin, you fall into conversation with someone, and then you fall into conversation with someone else, and it's relaxed and pleasant. And you feel ladylike. 4-inch heels, a black lace and chiffon cocktail dress. You take a sip of wine, light your cigarette, and who are you talking to? What are you talking about? Where? Iceland? Not. Who was that? Wait, maybe we're talking about Brazil and how he can't finish writing his novel, and where is he gone? This girl says they've met before. Don't you remember? In the summer at St. George's bookstore. Don't you remember? No. Oh. I mean, of course. Yes. He sits next to you. That one. Him. And the first sentences he says float high into the air over your head. Are you performing? Are you performing tonight? And you say, yes. And he says, well, be sure to be entertaining. And when you go on stage, you're still outraged by that comment. How could he be so patronizing? You become a full-blown cabaret act, flashing lights and fireworks. If you were a musical, there would be a chorus line waving jazz hands. And he'll have no idea, well, that it was all because of him. So I'm not feeling so great at the end of the RSPLB evening. It actually just makes me feel lonelier than before. But the cool thing about it is, unlike speed dating, the girls are awesome, and they give me the rundown of what it means to be single and female in London. It sounds pretty rubbish from the way they tell it, to be honest. It sounds are like, yeah, there's kind of more of us, and the guys aren't as cute, and the ones who are know that they've kind of got it made, so they're really kind of nonchalant about what's happening. And sometimes you just have to sleep with guys to see if they might date you later, but you'll have fun, it'll be fine. Great. But what I do find out about is that there's this other app that I wasn't aware of called Tinder. Is anyone here on Tinder? I know, I'll find out because it's on now, and I'll be like, yeah, less than 2 kilometers away, 10 people didn't want to admit they were on Tinder. But anyway, so I joined Tinder, and much to my delight, unlike Brenda, which had a like very hardcore anti-bisexual policy, very like 90s lesbian of it, Tinder allows me to go for men and women. So I'm like, awesome. But then the thing about Tinder is like I appreciate, right? It's you know, it's not like a dating site, it's a dating app, so people have different attitudes about making a profile. It isn't really a profile. But I still think the idea of it is you're meant to be putting out an image of you to make people want to go on a date with you, to make them want to have sex. And I discovered some really interesting categories, such as, I don't know if you can see my iPad, wedding photos, right? Which is like, okay, I get it, right? You spend all this money on a photographer, and you're wearing this really great outfit, but why is seeing a picture of your last failed relationship going to make me want to start a new one with you? Like, it's really, and there's like hundreds of wedding pictures, so that's pretty weird. Really, there are. And then, you know, people who just have the default Facebook photo and pets, right? Like dogs. Yeah, your dog is cute, but what? I mean, why dogs? And of course, you know, if there's going to be dogs, then there's going to be cats. Lots and lots of cats. And children. Lots of pictures of children. Bit pedo, a bit weird. I didn't even bring any of those there. I just feel really weird about it. And then, you know, tigers. You probably heard about the tigers. There's also elephants, mainly women with elephants for some reason. And then there's some images that are just plain fucking weird, right? I start collecting these as screenshots and sending them to my friends. And I kind of forget that I'm actually on it to meet people because I'm having so much fun.
Is he in a mankini?
I think he might have been. Well, it's a blow-up doll. I mean, there's a keeper, you know. I mean, I could go into others. There's like the group shots. that kind of outfox you because it's never the cute one in the picture in the group shot. You know, it's just, yeah. So, but eventually I'm like, oh, I am supposed to be on here to like actually meet people, not to send screenshots to my friends. And it's getting close to Christmas, and you know, I used to be a producer, so I am like really good at managing time. And I decide before the end of the year, I am gonna marathon it, right? And so I have a week on Tinder. And it's like this. Monday, the Turkish Cypriot photographer revs up on a silver Vespa, and as my head turns, I pause expectant, interrupting the clicking beat of my high heels on the pavement. And when we sit, he tells me really cheesy jokes. And then we discuss films we like and photography. Tuesday, I am 15 minutes late to meet the creative director of the Covent Garden advertising firm. And we get on well as he goes through pints like water. And I struggle to match with wine. And then at the bar, as I buy the 4th or 5th round, my phone vibrates with a text from my ex, who in this moment really wants to talk to me. And I text back, now is kind of not the best time. And as for the rest of the evening, my date and I, well, we mainly disagree passionately on the film Gravity. Wednesday, the DJ / exhibition builder / screen printer / graphic designer, who by the way is not a hipster, takes me for cocktails at a pop-up in Brixton, proceeds to take the piss out of the bar staff, and then tells me how far from temporary is the furniture. We then go, ironically, to Wetherspoons. I know, I'm such a sucker, right? I miss my last tube, and the date is expensive as I take a long cab ride home. Thursday, the Canadian comedian English teacher is 20 minutes late, clothes soaked through by a storm that he wasn't prepared for. And he's funny as hell. And he makes me play this game where we ask each other questions that the other can't repeat. And I learned that before moving here, he used to teach history and coach football. That was a particularly funny game, right? So it was kind of like truth and dare, but without the dare. And when you asked a question, the other person couldn't ask the same question. So he asked me, how many boyfriends have you had? And I say, you mean like since high school or generally? And he's like, fuck high school, we're adults. Now the question he didn't ask me is whether I was straight. And actually, up until about 5 years ago, I mostly dated women. So I said, this is gonna sound really weird. And he's like, no, tell me, how many boyfriends have you had? And I'm like, oh, 2. Friday, the super sexy brand consultant yoga instructor meets me for a nightcap in an overcrowded pub around the corner, and we just about fit at the end of a table of 2 very curious men. The bar stops serving, but like magic, she acquires 2 glasses and pours a rather decent Chardonnay under the table. Tells me the only perfume I wear is rose oil, and then lifts her shoulder-length curls so I can smell it off her neck, and the kissing is fantastic. Saturday, the Sussex psychotherapist is not as straight-laced as he looks. In a candlelit wine bar in the up-and-coming Hackney and Shoreditch border, he tells me he used to work for a men's phone sex line. The fictional Spanish boyfriend he had, this imaginary gay life. I like it when he says something is passing between our eyes. And we arrive late to a comedy night, waiting for a safe time to enter as our kissing is punctuated by the roaring laughter on the side of a too-thin wall. Sunday, the much younger filmmaker bartender is an hour late because he misread my text and is so cute that I don't mind. He tells me of a childhood spent between Salisbury and Bahrain, about pilot and flight attendant parents, and then says, suggesting collaborating was just his way of asking me out. Burning his thumb on a cup of mulled wine, he says, I guess this scar will now remind me of you. We talk about cities, creativity, job hunting, and share a bus part of the way home. And we sit so close our sides blur, and it's pouring outside, and when we kiss, the rain drips between our faces, and finally when we pull up our drenched, I think to when he said, have you been on many Tinder dates? And I smiled and said, a few. So I'm almost done. I mean, after that dating marathon, I've kind of been keeping more calm in the new year, letting people approach me. And the only thing that I've done that falls within all this is last week I went silent speed dating. And I'll play the last track of the episode. The only thing I can say about silent speed dating is that it was 18 quid, There were 14 women, all straight, 10 guys, only one I was attracted to. So basically, I spent 18 quid to sit in a room with guys that I wasn't attracted to and not talk to them. So that's me being clever about dating. So I've just got this one piece left. I want to do some quick plugs. So I've got a show at the end of the month at Chelsea Theatre called How I Became Myself by Becoming Someone Else. It's my first solo show that's supported by theater. I'm going to leave some with Lewis. If you hate Valentine's Day, next week I host the Anti-Slam. It's a slam where the worst poet wins, bringing out their worst love, sex, and heartbreak poems. I'm Paula Varjack. Varjack is spelled like carjack, but with a V. And this last piece is called Flirt. And the track always runs longer than I think it does. And it starts about here. A married man flirted with me yesterday. He didn't act very married, but then, having so few married friends, I don't know if I know how married people are meant to act. Less single, perhaps. He didn't bother to tell me, but maybe it slipped his mind for him to mention it to me. Or maybe he wore a ring. I'm not used to making a point of noticing such things. But then when our mutual friend interrupted our dynamic to gracefully mention the wife, I wanted to hide. So did this guy, I think, because he stopped flirting with me abruptly. I like flirting because flirting is like mentally wrestling. Unfortunately, the guys who wrestle back with me tend to have unmentioned girlfriends. And though I may be bi, I'm not really into couples, pairs. I prefer apples, actually, because they make me think of Eden and Eve in Temptation. She was totally misrepresented, you know. They got that story all wrong, seriously. It wasn't sin she was after. It was more like knowledge, change. They say that curiosity kills cats. I guess that's why Mother Nature gave them 9 lives. Maybe that's also why I've always considered myself that little bit feline. Thanks, guys.